So, are you ready to dive in something pretty wild today?
I am.
We're going deep into sleep paralysis.
Okay.
You know that feeling where you're awake but you can't move?
Right.
Often with those super creepy hallucinations?
Yeah.
We've got two first-hand accounts to kind of guide us.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, these stories are intense.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Okay, what's really fascinating to me about sleep paralysis is that it can be so terrifying,
Yeah.
but it's actually a lot more common than people think.
Mm.
It happens during those times when you're in between being asleep and awake. So when you're drifting off or just waking up,
Yeah.
basically your mind wakes up before your body.
So you're like caught in this weird in-between zone. You're like aware, but you can't move.
Exactly.
Our first story is from a 12-year-old girl named Lily.
Okay.
Imagine you're in her shoes.
Okay.
You know you're drifting off to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at those glow-in-the-dark stars on your ceiling.
And
And then, bam, your eyes snap open.
but you can't move a muscle.
It's like your brain hits the on switch,
Yeah.
but your body is stuck on pause. And then to make it even worse, you start having hallucinations.
That's exactly what happens to her.
Oh, wow.
She describes this like crushing pressure on her chest,
Oh, gosh.
like something heavy is holding her down.
Yeah.
Then out of the corner of her eye in her room, she sees this shadowy figure
Oh, my goodness.
with glowing red eyes.
It's like a nightmare come to life.
I know, right?
Yeah.
These hallucinations.
They're often called hypnagogic hallucinations, and they're not always just visual.
Oh, really?
Some people hear voices or feel touched
Oh, wow.
or even feel a presence in the room.
That would be scary.
The brain is kind of caught between the worlds of sleep and being awake,
Right?
and it starts to misinterpret sensory data.
Okay, so maybe it's just the brain like messing up.
Right.
But you know, if that was happening to me, I wouldn't be thinking about that.
No
Do
way.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'd just be terrified.
I would be terrified.
Of course.
So for Lily, the figure starts whispering these like menacing things,
Oh, no.
but in a language she doesn't understand.
Oh, wow.
And then as quickly as it started, the paralysis lifts.
Oh,
The
yeah.
figure vanishes,
Mhm.
but that feeling of dread, that sticks with her.
It's almost like your brain just watched a horror movie.
Yeah.
And you're left with the emotional indigestion, that lingering fear,
Yeah.
the worry that it might happen again.
Yeah.
That's really common.
Okay, so Lily's experience was really visual.
Right.
But our second story
Okay.
from Emma
Mhm.
really dives into like the psychological impact of sleep paralysis.
Oh, okay.
Emma is a teenager,
Mhm.
and over time, her sleep paralysis episodes become increasingly terrifying.
I think Emma's story is especially interesting because it shows how stress and anxiety can make sleep paralysis worse.
Oh, really?
She was dealing with a lot of pressure from exams,
Mm-hmm.
and that probably played a role.
Okay.
When we're stressed, our bodies release cortisol, and cortisol can really mess with our sleep patterns and make us more prone to sleep disturbances.
So it's not just scary,
Yeah.
it's like a vicious cycle. The
Exactly.
stress triggers the sleep paralysis,
Yeah.
and the sleep paralysis triggers more stress.
This is a nightmare.
And just like Lily Emma starts seeing those shadowy figures,
Mm.
the shadow people,
Right?
they seem to be like a recurring theme in these accounts.
Yeah.
But why shadow people?
That's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
The shadow people are a great example of how our culture and our own anxieties can shape what we see during hallucinations. Think about it.
Okay.
Across different cultures, shadows represent the unknown,
Right.
the hidden,
Yeah.
the potentially dangerous.
Oh, okay.
So when our brains are in this vulnerable state,
Yeah.
it makes sense that our primal fears take on this visual form.
Okay, so maybe it's our brains tapping into these universal fears.
Right.
But Emma's story takes like an even creepier turn. She starts finding these weird marks on her body after these episodes.
What?
Like something or someone has touched her.
This is where the mind-body connection gets really interesting
Right.
and maybe a little scary.
Yeah.
Imagine how scared Emma was.
Yeah.
How vivid these hallucinations were.
Yeah.
It's possible that those intense psychological experiences were actually manifesting as physical sensations.
Wow.
It's like her mind was leaving a mark on her body.
So her fear is like literally getting under her skin.
Exactly.
But this is what I like about Emma.
What's that?
She doesn't just accept this.
Right.
She's proactive.
I like that.
She starts researching online.
Hmm.
She confides in her friend Lily.
Okay.
And she even seeks out advice from this woman named Mrs. Hawthorne.
Who's that?
She seems to have some like unconventional wisdom about this.
Okay.
I think it's great that Emma was so proactive.
Me too.
It shows that she really wanted to understand and regain control over something that was so frightening.
That felt so out of control.
Exactly, and that's so important when you're dealing with sleep paralysis.
Definitely.
Okay, so Mrs. Hawthorne, she's kind of a wild card.
Right.
She gives Emma salt and herbs
What?
and tells her to use them for protection.
Really?
Is that just superstition?
Well, scientifically speaking, there's no evidence that salt or herbs can ward off sleep paralysis. But remember, these rituals can be incredibly powerful.
Oh, okay.
Think about the placebo effect.
Okay.
Even if something doesn't directly affect us physically,
Yeah.
the belief that it does can have a real effect on how we experience things.
So it's all about the power of belief.
In a way,
But wouldn't, like, the scientific explanation about cortisol and all that stuff, wouldn't that take away some of the mystery?
that's a great question.
You know?
Yeah.
And the intrigue of these experiences.
It makes you think about how we approach the unknown.
Yeah.
Does understanding something take away its power? Or does it help us to appreciate its complexity in a different way?
I guess it depends on the person, right?
Yeah.
Some people like the scientific explanation, others like the mystery.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
What helps you deal with the fear and anxiety.
Right.
Speaking of fear,
Yeah.
Mrs. Hawthorne had more to say than just salt and herbs.
Oh, really?
She said that these shadow people are drawn to fear and trauma.
What?
Like they feed off of it.
Okay, and that sounds a little out there.
I know.
But it makes you wonder
Yeah.
about, like, the role of our thoughts and emotions
Right.
in these experiences.
Exactly.
So you're saying our fears are like a buffet for shadow people.
It's an interesting idea.
That's a creepy thought.
It is.
But back to Emma.
Okay.
Despite being skeptical at first, her friend Lily ends up being really supportive.
Oh, that's good.
She takes Emma's experiences seriously,
Yeah.
helps her find Mrs. Hawthorne, and even tries some of the remedies herself.
Wow.
It's a good reminder that even when something seems unbelievable, having someone who believes you can make a huge difference.
Having a support network is so important.
Yeah.
People you can talk to without being judged.
Right.
It can really help.
It's like having a teammate in your corner when you're fighting a monster in the dark.
I like that analogy.
Okay, so back to these remedies.
Okay.
Mrs. Hawthorne tells Emma to sprinkle salt around her bed as a barrier
Okay.
and burn herbs for protection.
Interesting.
Did any of that actually work?
Well, the salt and herbs probably didn't have a direct impact,
Okay.
but creating that sense of protection and control could have had a strong psychological effect.
Right, like the placebo effect.
Yeah.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in reverse.
Sort of.
Instead of fear attracting the shadow people.
Yeah.
Maybe Emma's belief in the rituals helped keep them away.
It's possible.
But then things get worse.
Oh.
The shadow figures come back,
Oh, no.
even angrier than before.
That's not good.
And one even manages to touch her,
Oh.
leaving a mark on her wrist.
This escalation is interesting.
Yeah.
It almost suggests that the more we resist something, the stronger it gets.
Right.
It's like our fear fuels the hallucinations.
Like they're saying, oh, you think you can get rid of us that easily?
Right.
We'll show you.
Right.
But how do we explain the mark on her wrist?
That's where the line between mind and body gets blurry.
Right.
We know stress and anxiety can affect us physically.
Yeah.
It's possible that Emma's fear, combined with how real the hallucination felt,
Yeah.
triggered a physical response.
So like her mind's distress became a physical sensation.
Exactly.
Like our minds are powerful enough to leave marks on our bodies.
It's a little unsettling.
Yeah.
So what did Emma do then?
Did she give up?
No,
What did she do?
she went back to Mrs. Hawthorne,
Okay.
looking for stronger protection.
So she's going full on mystical now.
It seems that way.
What did Mrs. Hawthorne give her?
She gave her an old book
What was in it?
filled with rituals,
Okay.
prayers, and protective symbols.
Hmm.
She said these were ancient ways to ward off bad entities.
So she's saying these shadow people are real.
It sounds like she thinks they might be more than just in Emma's head.
Wouldn't that make them even scarier?
Well, it depends on your perspective.
Also.
For some, embracing a supernatural explanation can be empowering. It gives them a way to understand
Right.
and a way to fight back.
So it's like, okay, I'm not crazy. There's a reason for this.
Exactly.
And there are ways to deal with it.
It's like in those fantasy stories where the
Yeah.
hero discovers they have magic powers.
Right.
It's scary,
Yeah.
but also means they have a chance to win.
So what did Emma do with this book?
She took the ritual seriously,
Okay.
started doing them every night,
Like what?
drawing symbols on her walls,
Mm-hmm.
reciting prayers for protection.
It's interesting how belief can give us strength
Yeah.
even when we're afraid.
By doing these rituals, Emma was taking control
Hmm.
and fighting back against her fears.
So she's like a sleep paralysis warrior,
Kinda.
armed with ancient magic.
And a lot of courage.
Did it work?
It seems like it did.
Really? How so?
Emma said the shadow people started to weaken.
Oh, wow.
They appeared less solid
Mhm.
and faded away faster.
So the rituals were working,
It's hard to say for sure,
right?
but I think the most important thing is how Emma's mindset changed.
Okay.
She started to feel more powerful,
Yeah.
and that could have really changed her experience.
So it wasn't necessarily the rituals themselves,
Right.
but her belief in them.
Exactly.
The belief that she could overcome this.
That belief can be incredibly powerful.
But the shadow people were still showing up, right?
That's true.
So she wasn't completely free of them.
The shadows didn't disappear entirely,
Okay.
but Emma wasn't controlled by her fear anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She was facing them head on
Right.
with her new belief and the power of the rituals.
It's like she was looking at her fears and saying, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And that must have been a huge shift.
It was a turning point in Emma's journey.
Yeah,
She became an active participant,
right.
not just a victim.
It's like she flipped the script on the whole sleep paralysis horror movie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She went from terrified to totally in charge.
It's a really empowering shift. Shows that even with something as scary as sleep paralysis, we can take back control.
It's inspiring. So, after all that, did the shadow people ever, totally disappear?
Well, it's not a completely clean ending.
Yeah.
Weeks after starting the rituals, there's a night where the shadows don't show up at all.
Oh, wow.
She gets a good night's sleep, no scary encounters.
That's great.
But even though she's relieved, there's this lingering feeling
Hmm.
that it could come back.
It's like in horror movies.
Right.
The monster's never really gone, you know?
Exactly. Just waiting to pop out again.
So it's not just about, getting rid of the sleep paralysis itself.
No.
It's about managing the fear.
Yeah. Not letting it control you.
Did Emma manage to do that?
It seems like it. She starts sleeping better. Nightmares become more pleasant dreams.
Good.
And she slowly feels like herself again. But here's the important part.
Okay.
She keeps doing some of the rituals.
Even though she's feeling better.
Not because she's afraid, but for comfort.
Oh, I see.
Like a reminder of her own strength.
It's like she's made peace with it.
Yeah. Not letting it define her, but not pretending it didn't happen.
That's a really healthy approach.
Definitely. It shows resilience.
There's more to the story, yeah.
We caught that. One final scene that shows her transformation.
Okay, tell me, what happened?
So, weeks later, Emma's getting ready for bed.
Okay.
She sees a shadow in the reflection of her window.
Oh gosh, I can imagine that feeling.
Right, total rush of fear.
Yeah.
But she turns around and nothing's there.
Oh.
Empty room. Like a final test.
So the shadow people are messing with her now?
Seems like it.
That's creepy. How does she react?
She doesn't even flinch. Just smiles and whispers, "Not tonight."
Wow, like she's not afraid anymore.
Exactly. Faced her fears, embraced her strength, and came out stronger.
Such a powerful image.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've explored these two really intense stories about sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Lily's story showed us just how terrifying it can be.
Mhm.
And Emma's showed the power of, knowledge, resilience, and belief.
It's striking how both stories, even with the seemingly supernatural stuff, really are about human experiences.
Right? Vulnerability, fear, searching for understanding.
Exactly. Even though these episodes feel so real, so terrifying, they're often rooted in normal body stuff.
Right, and understanding that, along with getting support, managing fear, makes a big difference.
Huge. Sleep paralysis isn't a mental illness or a, supernatural attack
It's a sleep disorder.
that can be understood and managed.
Okay, so to wrap up, what are the key takeaways from Lily and Emma?
First, knowledge is power. Understanding the science behind it can help.
Makes sense. What else?
Don't be afraid to get support. Talk to people. Join online groups.
Yeah, like building your own monster fighting team.
Exactly. And lastly, you have agency. You can manage this. Good sleep habits, stress management, relaxation techniques.
All good advice. And if it's really bad, get professional help.
Definitely.
Before we go, I gotta ask. Listening to these stories, it makes you wonder about the power of the mind, right?
It does.
If our brains can create these terrifying experiences, what does that say about our imaginations?
It's a deep question. Shows the power and complexity of the brain.
Mind-blowing, really. Makes you think what else our minds are capable of.
For sure.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about. What about you, listeners? What are your thoughts?
Share your stories and thoughts with us on social media. We'd love to hear them.
We're always eager to hear from our listeners.
And explore these mysteries together.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those imaginations going.